What up, though, everybody? This is Kyle, and welcome back. Welcome, if this is your first time, welcome to Knockouts and Three Counts. And as you can see by the thumbnail and the title to this video, we've got a very special guest. We will be joined by the LFA 2020 Male Fighter of the Year, Mr. Josh Fremd. Now, with Josh, you're going to hear a great story tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about how in 2019, this man had a broken orbital bone, and due to that, had gotten addicted to pain pills, and how he was laid up in the hospital. To have a full in a year's time from 2019 to 2020, had a year turnaround. The man is now your 2020 LFA Male Fighter of the Year, and he's getting ready to go to war January 29th live on UFC Fight Pass for LFA Legacy Fighting Alliance. So there's a lot to talk about here, and we get into the latest in pro wrestling and MMA. So pull up a seat, get you a drink, and check out the show. Peace.
Yeah, man. Just a quick synopsis of it. In 2018, I won my first pro title back in Pittsburgh, and I was always planning on making a move to a bigger gym. Some things fell the way they did, and I ended up here in Colorado. And when I first got out here, things were awesome. It was a great gym. I love this place. And I was in the middle of a jiu-jitsu practice, and probably one of my best jiu-jitsu practices since I've moved here at the time. And an old wrestling injury from high school flared up, and it was my meniscus. I had a bucket handle tear. I had to go get that taken out. So I was on the shelf for about 3 to 4 months there. And then I had no health insurance. So as I moved out here, from Pennsylvania to Colorado, I had to change all my health insurance. So, I was working at the bar, serving drinks, limping like Quasimodo. And so I worked my way back to there. I got back in the gym. I was ready, excited, getting ready, helping a teammate with getting his fight. He was fighting in the UFC at the time. And we were doing an awesome sparring session. And last 10 seconds, he just threw a knee that just cleanly hit me right in the face. And it was the end of the round. I took my stuff off and I pressed my face, and I could just feel my cheekbone just sink into my face. So I knew immediately it was broken. And I was December 27th, literally a whole year after winning my first pro title, I broke my face. My 2020 started off with me in the hospital getting surgery.
What up, everybody? This is Kyle, and you are back watching, listening, whatever you're doing. You're watching and back for Knockouts and Three Counts. And hey, if you're new to the show, thank you and welcome. Corey, how the fuck you doing tonight, man? Let them know where they can find you on all your social medias.
Another week back at it again. Honestly, man, it's been all right so far this week. No complaints on a Tuesday. As always, the only thing I use, Fight Fan from 313 on Twitter. Let's get to it.
Well, as we told you, if you guys have been paying attention to any of the promo for this episode, we are going to be joined at around 9:30 by the LFA Male Fighter of the Year, Mr. Josh Fremd. Now, Corey, have you gotten a chance to check out any of Mr. Fremd's work?
Oh, of course, man. I mean, we watched most of these LFA cards together. So, that being said, of course,
So what are your thoughts on this man's 2020? Do you think he's the rightful Male Fighter of the Year?
I think LFA had a ton of options. I don't think they necessarily could have went in a wrong direction, if you know what I'm saying. But that being said, I think they definitely made the correct choice. I 110%, 110% believe that.
I agree with you, man. He had some really nasty knockouts. And I mean, once we get into this guy's story, moving across country over there to Colorado to Factory X MMA, to kind of get a new look, and coming in and rifling off two nasty wins in 2020 and getting ready to start 2021 with a bang on January 29th against Mr. Oliveira. We've got a lot to talk about before then. In the world of pro wrestling, man, there's some interesting things going on. there's a few call-ups that I think that we could be seeing soon, and I'm gonna bring those up right now. For any of you guys that are in the live stream, let us know. Let us know your thoughts. First of all, you've got Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley took a L on NXT this past Wednesday at their New Year's show. Great match against Raquel Gonzalez. But with the way she went out, it had that vibe of, I feel like we could be seeing a call up coming for Rhea Ripley. This could be good or bad. I think that she could be very valuable especially on the Raw women's roster. I think that with the lack of who they have at their disposal to be able to be using, bringing up somebody like a Rhea Ripley, who's such a powerhouse and has her own unique look, I think would be a great, it would be a great addition to either one of the rosters, whether it ends up being SmackDown or Raw. There's nothing guaranteed yet that she's going up because we haven't had NXT this week and she wasn't on Raw. So she could still be on SmackDown, and we got to see if she shows up on NXT this week. But as mentioned, it's like I said, it's going to be an interesting one. Secondly, I've got here on my notes, and one of the biggest things that's come out of this whole merger thus far, out of the new partnership between Impact and AEW, you've got the reformation of the Bullet Club, or I don't know quite what we're going to call this here. The Bullet Club name is owned by New Japan, so obviously they're not going to call them the Bullet Club. But I mean, what was very interesting to me is on live TV on TNT, you've got them doing the two sweet in the middle of the ring, which is the classic Bullet Club gesture, which was real interesting. You had Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers from Impact, the Impact World Tag Team Champions, were in the ring, and then they were joined by the Young Bucks. You had a good portion of Bullet Club from when they were all over in Japan. So it's real interesting, man, because now you've opened up a door to where the lines are going to start getting blurred. Now you got companies that are working together. I personally like it. I think if WWE could adopt this, maybe if it were in the right situations, I think it could be very beneficial for their product. But it's, I don't know, like I said, it's going to be real interesting. Like I said, for those of you who are in the live feed, let us know what you think.
Real quick on that, I kind of feel like WWE almost does it the same way the UFC does, where they kind of almost don't want to do partnerships because they don't want to give the shine to any other organizations. They have that label of being the big dog, and they feel like if they even give a little bit of shine to somebody, that's just helping somebody else instead of themselves.
And I totally agree, but here's the thing. Now that you've got a company like AEW who is on a TNT and has the star power that they're bringing up. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're on the same level as the WWE, but now that AEW is working with these other companies like an Impact, like, and now you have to realize, so now that you're doing that with the New Japan thing, them doing that, I don't know if that opens the door for New Japan to work with AEW as well, because I've heard a lot of talk that Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega have been doing a lot to try to make relations better for them. What up, Mitchell? I see you in the feed. Like I said, man, it's going to be interesting. Mitchell, I don't know if you've been watching any of the wrestling stuff right now. We're talking about the Bullet Club reunion, I guess you could call it, that we saw on AEW and what we've seen from NXT. We're going to be getting into what's going on with the upcoming UFC fights. And as I mentioned at 9:30, we are going to be joined by LFA Male Fighter of the Year, Mr. Josh Fremd. Corey, what are your thoughts about all this like commingling, though? Do you think that, because in my personal opinion, the only way WWE ever changes anything or does anything for the better is when they're feet to the fire? And something like this is going to be about the only way they do it. What up, no Logan? We got the Dread King Logan in the comments. You can check him out. He's got no hook. He's going to be there. Paradigm Pro Wrestling making moves. What up, John?
What up, what up? But like I said, I hate to, keep alluding it to like the UFC and to, MMA in general, but I feel like that's my best correlation is it's just, they really are. They're the big brother of the whole situation. So they're like, hey man, if I even give you a little bit of shine, that's taken off the top of my, and it's not only that, it's like, you see sometimes these cross promotional bouts don't always go the way that maybe one side's hoping that it would. And even though they're willing to maybe let the other guy kind of, get the shine, get up on their guy, they still don't get the promotional kick that they were hoping to and stuff like that. So I feel like maybe that's part of the reason too why you don't see it as often as,
I mean, a very good point. But again, that's where for me it's just interesting because I feel like they may be forced to, because now if you get all these other companies working together, Logan, I see in the comments, man, if you're still watching, any of you guys that are watching, what are your guys' thoughts on AEW, teaming up with AEW teaming up with Impact? From what we've seen so far, any of you guys that are wrestling fans, do you guys have any thoughts on it? Let us know in the comments. For me, man, like I said, it creates the number one thing that this creates, man, is it creates unpredictability. You don't know what's going to happen. That's where I feel like this could be something good for AEW and something that you could see WWE maybe try somewhere down the road, maybe with somebody along the lines of a MLW, maybe, because they've gotten guys from MLW as well. I could see maybe an MLW partnership or something like that to where they might bring some guys in, or, who knows, maybe they just keep it in-house. They bought Evolve and all that. What if they just start trying to make them their own promotions again and giving them like their own feeder system again? There's a lot of different options, but I think with all these partnerships, you don't know. I mean, and not to mention, we're talking about 2021. You talk about 2021, man, you don't know what's going to happen. In the comments, we've got the Diamond, Jack Price, telling us, he said he likes it, to be honest, because it's more opportunities. He likes the partnership because it's more opportunities. Okay. You've got the Dread King Logan. He says it's smart because it brings more eyes. Not really done before.
Okay. So my argument, for instance, the AEW, you use that as an example, right?
Right.
They are bringing more eyes, but they're the ones with the eyes to begin with. I feel like, yes, they are spreading the wealth a little bit, I guess you could say. And they're right. They're doing it to a promotion that they kind of started working with to try to kind of save, essentially, in my eyes, from what it seemed like. And it's just interesting.
I gotta disagree on that one, though. It's not a save because Impact is really hyped their shit up, especially since you had all the releases from WWE, man. They picked up quite a few big names that came out of there. You had Eric Young went over there. Obviously, you had the Good Brothers. We were just talking about the whole Bullet Club thing. They had big pickups, and Impact was already making steam on their own. So I don't really think this is a situation where it's saving somebody. I think, if anything, this is going to be something that can propel Impact to being a higher name brand, because now you've got the commingling of them on TNT, which TNT obviously is a way bigger network than Access TV, which is where Impact is currently at. That's just going to be real interesting for me. The other thing, and
they've been home on Access TV for years and years, because I remember back watching LFA, and they would do follow-ups after LFA.
New Japan was on Access TV, not Impact. There's a difference.
Well, Impact, which TV network was I thinking about then that they were on? They were on, True TV.
They were on Pop TV, and then they were on True TV and Destiny.
Yeah, True TV is the one I was thinking of. Okay. I knew it was one of those like slightly oddball networks that, they were on for a while.
And that brings into another good point. And for all of you guys that are in there, I'd love to hear your comments on this. And this will tie in for you as well, because this could mean that we start to see, fans back in MMA as well. We also had Wrestle Kingdom that went down in Japan. Now, it's been reported that over the 2 days, you had 20,000 fans were there at the Tokyo Dome. Now, obviously, that's the biggest number of fans I've heard of since all this pandemic COVID stuff. I mean, hopefully this can open up a door so that we can have more shows and stuff. Overall, great product, but what are your thoughts on there being a big crowd for the first time in a year, essentially?
Well, so them boys down under, I can't talk today. I've had one of those rough days. But I can't remember if it was Australia or New Zealand, but one of them was holding a rugby or a Australian Football League rules event, and they had over 100,000 attending crowd.
That's insane. Isn't it crazy to even think that we're saying that it's crazy for there to be that many fans when just a year ago it was like whatever? Like I've been in multiple stadiums where there's been 100,000 people in that bitch, and it's whatever.
You've attended games at the big house in Ann Arbor, right? Yeah, I mean that when that place gets packed, it's like 110 or 115 or something, and it's just like it's literally a sea of people. But with that being said, actually, there's it's confirmed now that there's going to be fans in attendance for all three of these Fight Island cards too. I don't know if you were aware of that.
I did hear that, and I heard that they've been talking about that. Now, did they give out a number at all as to how many they're going to have?
They did not give out an exact number. I know tickets were very expensive, which tells me that it's going to be very.
Well, they're in Abu Dhabi, man. God damn it, they're rich over there. Aren't most of the shows over there paid anyway?
Very good point. But that also kind of tends to make me think it's going to be somewhat limited capacity. Also, I know the way that they're doing it is it's really interesting because they're essentially requiring you to have two negative tests within like a 48-hour period before attending the event, and I think another 2 negative tests before even flying over to Abu Dhabi. So in that regard,
you better get used to that swab, bro.
Yeah, in other words, they're doing it real. They're doing it real smart, and whoever's running that COVID testing ring's making some money off these fans. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be such a nice change of pace to hear fans get fired up in the background.
And not piped in fan noise.
It's going to be weird. I was watching, which fight was it? It was Holloway versus Pettis. They uploaded it on the UFC's page for the free fight for the week. And it was weird, man. It was just weird because you could hear the fans in the background. They clinched for like 15, 20 seconds. People are booing. It's like you forget like the weird stuff that goes along with fans, like the walkouts and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting. And then the fact that they're going on ABC too, that just makes it that much more interesting. I'm really curious to see how that plays out, honestly. Because I'm sure they're going to be promoting the hell out of this because they're kind of trying to go against the NFL playoffs, essentially, because there's going to be a game going on at the same time. So
it's going to be interesting to see how that card plays out because, I mean, this card on Saturday, you've got the Holloway versus Cater as your main event, which that fight's going to be a banger. Mm-hmm. You've got Buckley's going to be on it, which is going to be a banger.
Yeah.
And then you've got, what's the co-main on that one?
Carlos Condit versus, why can't I think of his name right now? I've been looking forward to this fight. Matt Brown.
Okay, yep.
I couldn't think about that. That fight.
Like I said, they've got good fights, but again, outside of the Holloway fight, I don't know if it'll have the mainstream power to really knock off the playoffs, but we're gonna have to see how that goes. But something I wanted to touch on in reference to what you said, you were talking about the different crowds and things. If you guys are new here to the channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button because I've only got 2 days until I'm headed down there to Pele Pro Wrestling in Dallas, Texas.
My man's taking a flight.
We taking a flight, and we're gonna see what's popping down there in the Lone Star State. Hook 'em horns, all that good shit. Hey, it's still go blue this way, but we're gonna be looking up down there with Devin and past guests of the show, El Rudo de las Chicas, Mr. Sam Adonis, and we're gonna be linking up with Cleveland's own. Greetings from the 216, Mr. Shane Taylor, Ring of Honor's own. So make sure you stay tuned. You don't know what we're going to be getting into. Hell, we could end up throwing some axes. We could end up doing Top Golf. And let me tell you, I fucking suck at golf. So if we're doing golf, be sure that you check that out, because most likely I am going to be making a fucking fool of myself. But as promised, like I said, we are supposed to be joined at 9:30 by the LFA Fighter of the Year, Mr. Josh Fremd. Corey, another interesting thing as we go into all this, and I'd like to hear your quick thoughts on this, is what do you think about Paige Van Zandt's upcoming debut for Bare Knuckle FC?
I think they could not have hand selected a more perfect cherry of a pick'em fight. They literally got somebody out. Offhand, I believe her record is like 4-8 or something like that, going against Paige Van Zandt, who's a legitimate, like, I mean, say what you want to say about like how she contended in the UFC, this, that, and the other. She had a legitimate run in the UFC. She made it, and she held her ranking for quite a long time. I feel like she would have done a lot better if she wasn't dealing with injuries so much throughout her career. But that being said, they really hand selected this girl for her. I mean, it should be a very easy fight as long as Paige can adapt to the whole bare knuckle rule set fairly easily, which her being a mostly stand and bang till she gets touched and then tries to take people down. It's real interesting. It's real interesting to see how her style is going to translate. It really is. But I think either way.
So do you think she's getting the dub is the question. Do you think she's going to be able to take a bare knuckle punch?
I think that, like I said, I think they hand-picked this girl as they picked the easiest fight they could possibly find from somebody on their roster.
But so with a lot of the bare knuckle FC fights, though, hasn't that kind of been the story for some of them, though, that some of these guys don't have the greatest records and things like that? Because I feel like we've seen that in quite a few fights. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't try to throw Paige a softball here to get her a dub in her debut, but I'm just saying, I mean, I have noticed that in a lot of those fights, there's guys who got losing records going into it. Now, obviously, that's not the case at the higher level, like with our boy Josh Burns, who went fucking viral, putting that guy to sleep. All right. But I'm just saying, they've had like suspect records on fights before. So I don't know necessarily that I would say that it's such the cream ball, because self-admittedly, unless it's a fight that I was looking forward to that intently, until we started getting a chance to interview some more of the BKFC guys, I didn't watch a ton of bare knuckle before that.
See, I've really enjoyed what they've been putting out. I mean, granted, most of it's a shit show, and I would say 25% of it ends up being the quality of street beefs. But that being said, the stuff that's not is really entertaining. Like you said, our boy Josh Burns, I mean, that was a clear example. Those were two very skilled competitors going in there trying to take each other's head off. Granted, so to touch back on, because I didn't get to really elaborate on what you were saying earlier about the kind of like bad records and stuff like that. Most of those people are, maybe they'll have a 6-10 record in MMA, but this is their first or maybe second bare knuckle bout. Not the circumstance in Paige's instance. Her opponent, this is like her 5th bare knuckle bout, and she's like 3-2 or 2-3. So I believe she's even got a losing record in bare knuckle. So that being said, And she's a pretty face too, so I think that's realistically why they picked her. But more often than not, it's not really, I don't put a ton of credence in the fact that a lot of these guys may have a slightly salty record, because this is their second endeavor into a new career, essentially. They're starting this off with a new slate with 0-0. Granted, you can definitely see that some people have more combat experience, obviously have more skills and stuff, and you can kind of tell that by their record slightly. But that doesn't always translate. It really doesn't. I've seen that multiple times.
Okay, but the question is, do you think that Paige Van Zandt fighting for Bare Knuckle FC is really going to move the needle for them?
For them, depending on what they're paying her, I absolutely see it could. I mean, look at us. Would we be talking about it in the middle of a random week without a bare knuckle card going on if it wasn't for Paige? You know?
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, Paige built her name in the UFC, so obviously she's got a bigger name. She's got a bigger name than any of the, the other names that I know of in the female division, or quite frankly, in most of the male divisions, unless you talk of like Chris Lieben or something like that, a guy who's been around a long time, but really there's not a lot of name power in Bare Knuckle FC.
Well, they're the person that they have co-maining. I'm not sure who he's fighting, but he's defending his bare knuckle belt. Johnny Bedford. He's looked incredibly impressive in bare knuckle.
Johnny Bedford, man. Now that's a story of a guy who went over from MMA. He was on the Ultimate Fighter, and he fought a lot here in Michigan. He fought in Michigan. He fought in Southgate, for WXC. He was their champion for a while. And then he comes over here to Bare Knuckle FC and just waxed fools.
Dude, now, if I'm not mistaken, he's undefeated, and I think he's like 6-0 holding their belt right now. Oh, and he's fought. I mean, granted, maybe the first fight or maybe even the second one were slightly easier, but after that, after he's shown his skills in the bare knuckle, what do they call it? The squared circle or whatever.
Yeah.
Once he showed his skills in that, he's been fighting the who's who in the BKFC, and he's been just making it look easy. He really has. I've been incredibly impressed with him, and he's co-manning on that slot. So I'm hoping for his sake that they do get a lot of eyes, because I feel like if you start seeing athletes like that really are good and really are skilled at their craft and there's an element of fun, of course, to the shit show aspect, but once you start to see the skilled athletes and stuff really go in there and compete, that's when you can start to really consider it more of a sport.
Case in point, look at Josh Burns, man.
Yeah,
he was a way more technical boxer than that guy. If you watch that knockout, dude, he set up every shot. The jab worked his way in. The second punch knocked his hands out the way, and that right hand set that man to sleep. You couldn't have thrown that any cleaner. Call it bare knuckle, call it whatever you want. I think you just hit the nail on the head with what got Josh that knockout in the clean jab, man. And we talk about all the time when we're talking about MMA, how that's one of the most underutilized weapons in MMA, even though it's talked about more like that. Now, before I get off onto too much of a tangent, I did just get a message from our guest, the 2020 LFA Male Fighter of the Year, Mr. Josh Fremd. He will be joining us momentarily. He just shot us a message. So all of you guys who are tuning in to check out Mr. Fremd, he is coming. And let me tell you, this guy has quite the story. If you pay attention to his social media, you'll see in some of his posts, he was talking about in a recent post how in 2019, this man was in the hospital addicted to pain pills. And in 2020, we're talking about this man as the fighter of the year. Okay. I mean, what a difference a year makes. Like I said, stay tuned. We've got the man coming in here in a few minutes. This is a story that you're not going to want to miss. That's another thing that I think was a real unsung hero of 2022 is, Corey, is that these promotions like LFA and CFFC, while yes, they were big beforehand and they were obviously some of the biggest feeders for the UFC, and that's why they were on UFC Fight Pass. they were really the unsung hero to give these guys who were on their way up those shots to see these dudes get to the UFC. Because how many dudes did we see go from LFA this year and end up in the UFC?
Oh, I mean, and not even just going directly into the UFC. I mean, look at the Contender Series that they ran all year. That was essentially you essentially could watch LFA or CFFC, and you could say, "Oh, these three guys look really impressive tonight. I bet they'll be on the Contender Series in the next 2-3 months." And sure enough, you'd see their face come through, and you'd be like, "Oh, hey, I remember that guy." It was literally like that. I mean,
Without any further ado, we are joined by the man himself, the 2020
oh
Male
shit.
Fighter of the Year, Mr. Josh Fremd. How you doing, brother, man?
Man, I'm doing awesome. I'm doing awesome. How are you guys doing tonight?
Hey, man, we're
Good.
freezing our balls off, but that's normal for Michigan.
Yeah, feel that.
Hey, man. So, first of all, thanks for your time tonight. I know we've been working on making this happen for a little while now, but man, you had quite the 2020 and what was such a shit year for everybody else. So, before we get going, man, throw your social media out and let everybody know where they can find you real quick.
Yeah, you guys can follow me at Josh Fremd MMA on Instagram, at Josh Fremd on Twitter, Facebook, and all that sweet jazz.
So, one of the things that we were talking about off rip, to kind of give our fans a little bit of a backdrop on your 2020, I was looking into some of your social medias at those handles that you just mentioned. And one of the things I noticed in one of your posts is you talked about how you went from 2019 where you were really down and out to a 2020 where, you're fighter of the year. So, first of all, congratulations on such a turnaround. And
Thanks.
second of all, tell me a little bit about that journey and what it was like to kind of get yourself back on the winning side of things in 2020.
Yeah, man. Just a quick synopsis of it. I in 2018 I won my first pro title back in Pittsburgh, and I was always planning on making a move to a bigger gym. Some things fell the way they did, and I ended up here in Colorado. And when I first got out here, things were awesome. It was a great gym. I love this place, and I was in the middle of a jiu-jitsu practice, and probably one of my best jiu-jitsu practices since I've moved here at the time. And an old wrestling injury from high school flared up, and it was my meniscus. I had a bucket handle tear. I had to go get that taken out. So I was on the shelf for about 3 to 4 months there. And then I had no health insurance. So as I moved out here, from Pennsylvania to Colorado, I had to change all my health insurance. So, I was working at the bar serving drinks, limping like Quasimodo. And so I worked my way back to there. I got back in the gym. I was ready, excited, getting ready, helping a teammate with getting his fight. He was fighting in the UFC at the time, and we were doing an awesome sparring session. And last 10 seconds, he just threw a knee that just cleanly hit me right in the face. And it was the end of the round. I took my stuff off and I pressed my face, and I could just feel my cheekbone just sink into my face. So I knew immediately it was broken. And it was December 27th, literally a whole year after winning my first pro title, I broke my face. My 2020 started off with me in the hospital getting surgery. And then by the time that I was healed from that, I'd say it was March. And then St. Patty's Day comes around, and then next thing you know, COVID hits. So my 2019, beginning of 2020 was god awful.
So that's insane, dude, because we talk a lot about on the show when it comes to the MMA side of things. As I mentioned when we were talking about having you come on the show, we also cover pro wrestling. But when we get to the fighting side of things, one of the things that we talk about a lot is the mental game of it.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's something that goes so underrated, right? I feel like, especially in 2020, when fans have no choice now but to watch fights from at home, all they see is you guys walk to the cage. All they see is you guys get in the cage and fight, but they don't see, the 8, 10, 12 weeks, and sometimes even less than that goes into, getting into those fights. I talk about this a lot because I have a purple belt myself in jiu-jitsu and have fought 3 or 4 times in boxing. And one of my good friends is Miles Jury, who has made his way through the UFC and Bellator and things like that. And watching him, it's funny to hear you say that it was your knee. It always seems to be the knee, because I remember having the same conversation with Miles right after he was on The Ultimate Fighter. The first time with Ferguson, or not Ferguson, Ferguson was on that season, but it was Lesnar versus Dos Santos. And I remember he blew up his knee and was trying to plead with him to get him to fight. So that mental game, I feel like, is so underrated. But as we talked about, 2020 was a huge year for you. Before we get into that, one thing I wanted to talk about is you said you ended up in Colorado and you're training at Factory X. I know Colin Anglin from here in Michigan has gone down there along with Amanda Bobby Cooper and her husband, Cody Bundridge. Like I said, I've heard a lot of good things about this place. Tell me why Factory X was the right fit for you.
Man, so I have ties to Florida. I have friends who moved down there who train at Sanford, and formerly known as Hard Knocks. And I did a couple of training camps down there, and I love it down there. I have nothing bad to say about those guys at all. And my girlfriend, who's in the Air Force, we were deciding between Florida, and she had a really good opportunity out here in Denver. And I knew a couple people who were out here training at the time. So I was like, hey, let's give it a shot. If we don't like it, we can recoup and do something else. We'll figure it out. And we got out here, and dude, from the jump, when I got here, like, everyone is so welcoming. Like, I've been to gyms where, from boxing, like, you go to different boxing gyms, people try and rip your head off. Like,
oh, dude, you don't belong MMA too.
Yeah. And like, but these guys were so welcoming, and anything I needed, they were there to help me. It's the culture here, the family culture, though everyone's striving to push each other. I mean, not to mention the high skill level that we have here with all the fighters, the coaches. The coaches have been there, done that, and they've seen it all, and they have every bit of a resource to help you, whether it's your mental game, your physical game, different attributes. They help you to funnel your game, so to speak, to where, this is your body type, this is your style, this is what you have the ability to do. We're going to add abilities, but we're also going to fine tune what you're good at,
That brings up, that leads perfectly into my next question for you. As we were talking about, your 2020 was a great year, but obviously it was under different circumstances than what we're all used to. There were no fans in the arenas and all that kind of stuff. So, for you to get on such a roll like you have, and get on a winning streak like that, how has fighting during the pandemic affected you at all? Like, is it any different? Like, do you like it better without the fans? Does it bother you without having, that adrenaline rush? What did, having two of arguably your biggest fights of your career happen with nobody in attendance?
I mean, it was a little bittersweet. I'm not going to lie, because I want to fight in those those big arenas that they have for LFA. Like, I've been there when they had almost packed houses for some fights at LFA, and it's amazing, electricity in the air. But at the same time, whether the fans are there, whether they're not there, we're there to fight. That's what we're there to compete at, So it was nice. It was pretty cool to fight without fans, because you can hear everything. You can hear every footstep, every breath in the cage, every punch. Like, it's real intimate, and it's kind of cool. But other than that, I can't wait to have fans back.
It almost seems like it would kind of remind me of like competing in like an old high school competition or something, like in the gym or something, where there's little bit of noise and stuff, of course, in the background and stuff from people's family and stuff, but for the most part, it's kind of just coaches and officials and stuff like that, whistles and stuff like that, background noise, more like focus.
Oh yeah.
Big time. I mean, for me, I think personally I would like it. And I only say that for the simple fact that I can hear my coach. You can hear their coach. And that's another good thing to talk about. If I'm not mistaken, didn't you compete in like a submission grappling tournament too, or have a grappling match as well?
I've had a few, yeah.
Right. So I mean, like, you've been able to stay real active and things like that. what was the vibe like at that in the grappling tournaments? That's something that I'm more familiar with. I've competed in plenty of different grappling tournaments and things like that, but obviously, you know, you just had the IBJJF Master Worlds and all that, and that was nothing like what you normally see. So was that, you know, was that really crucial for you to be able to stay warm with there being the lack of fights, you know, in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I always am looking to stay active, you know, whether it's competing in jiu-jitsu or MMA. If I was still back in Pittsburgh, I probably guarantee you I'd be boxing from time to time. But being out here, I'm more MMA focused right now. Um, but, you know, I've competed for Fight to Win once. I've competed for High Rollers. I've done a couple, you know, different tournaments, local tournaments. And as far as like competing goes, like the local tournaments and big tournaments like that, it's kind of like a wrestling tournament in high school. There's just a whole bunch of people, there's a whole bunch of mess going on, and it's not really till the finals that people really start paying attention, you know, crucially. But when I competed on Fight to Win, you know, that was an amazing experience because I was able to hear my coaches. Because like in MMA, there's a lot of cheering and hoorah, and in MMA, I feel like it's more civil. I guess I'd say like people are more interested in seeing the intricacies of the moves that are being applied, you know. And I was able to hear my coach a lot better, and I felt like a robot with him at a joystick at that time because whatever he told me to do, I was doing, and you could hear it and then see it at the same time. It was pretty cool.
I mean,
that is interesting. That's got to be an interesting feeling. I know Kyle had already partially asked you this, and I don't want to jump back too far before we get too far ahead of ourselves, but I really am kind of curious. After coming back from the injury, man, was there any type of nerves or anything like that? I mean, especially not only coming back during the quarantine, like you said, but coming back from a significant injury and then coming back to a quarantine, the whole kind of atmosphere had changed. The game had kind of changed a little bit. I mean, what were your thoughts on all that?
So coming back from my knee injury, I would say I was more hesitant with certain things just because of the swelling and it wouldn't bend all the way. You know, when you try to put your heel to your butt, it doesn't bend all the way. Eventually I got that worked out. I got all the swelling out and now I'm back to normal. But when I broke my orbital, I'm not going to kid you, dude. Like I did not give, can I cuss on this?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
I did not give two shits. If someone was going to break my shit again, break it again, because I've already broken my face once, which I never imagined in a million years I would do.
Right.
And, you know, what's the worst that could happen after you broke your face? I mean, I really don't see anything worse than that, besides obviously a career-ending injury, which that possibly could have been. But I told myself, I was like, look, and that's kind of how my mentality is now. Like, I already had all this time on the shelf. I had all this time where everyone was passing me over and I wasn't getting looked at. People forgot about me. I'm going to go out now and I'm just going to fight my fight. If I end up getting hurt, all right, that's how the cards fall. But I'm not going to let that interfere or make me hesitant or make me, you know, gun shy, because at the end of the day, everyone's going to be done with this sport. Everyone has their, you know, expiration date for whatever it is that you want to do. Some people get in and out early. Some people get in, stay long. Some people get hurt and you're done early. So I just want to take every moment that I have anymore to just go full-fledged, you know, 100%, no hesitation.
So I can completely relate with that for our show. First of all, don't feel bad that you busted up your eye, because Corey fucked up my eye when we were kids because the son of a bitch threw a golf ball from the other side of the field and it happened to poke me in the fucking eye. And the doctor straight up told me that it detached my retina so bad that if it would have hit
I thought I killed one of my
if it would have fucked it up, if put it this way, it hit me bad enough that if it would have been like a little bit harder, I might be walking around like Patch Adams in this motherfucker.
It had no bullshit. It had to have been at least an 80-yard throw. And it hit him directly. It hit him directly, like in between.
It hit me dead square in the eye, dude. Like right in the eyeball. It wasn't even like the orbital. It hit me right in the fucking.
Oh my god!
I thought I killed
him. And find out, Brett Favre.
Right, dude. That was worse than any punch I ever took in a boxing ring. Any fucking armbar, choke, Fuck that.
I could imagine,
Dog.
man, a golf ball.
I will gladly redo that and not do it again. But but before we get to your fight that's going down on January 29th live on UFC Fight Pass for LFA, I have to ask, since we were talking about us being a wrestling show, was Mr. Fremd ever a fan of the squared circle and pro wrestling at all? If so, who?
I was for a bit. I'm not gonna lie. I was one of those John Cena fans for a bit.
All right.
Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton. Those were my guys back then. You know, like I wasn't super into it, but that oh, look at that. That's cool.
Oh, but you see there?
Oh shit.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a nerd, but
no, I mean, my pap was a big fan, and when I was a kid, I would watch it with him. I think it was like maybe seventh or eighth grade where I stopped really watching it because I got into like actual wrestling.
Sure.
And but no, I was a big fan. I had all the toys, you know. I even had my Dragon Ball Z characters in the square circle. So it was.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I had to see because it's funny. Like we had Justin James from the UFC on here, dude, and like he's like a huge Stone Cold fan. Which Stone Cold's my guy, dude. Like
that's
I grew up
right there.
Hey, man, I grew up in the '90s, dude. Stone Cold was my guy. Hey, it was what it was. But let's get back to the business at hand. Like I said, you're going to war January 29th. How are you feeling with the quick turnaround into 2021? And how are you feeling about your matchup with your opponent, Mr. Oliveira?
I'm feeling great, man. You know, I wanted to get another one in on 2020, but it just didn't work out. So I was able to enjoy, you know, Thanksgiving. I haven't enjoyed Thanksgiving in so many years because I'm just fighting during it. But, you know, I went home for Thanksgiving in Pittsburgh, came back, and I knew, you know, I was going to get a fight lined up. I was talking about it. I was bugging my manager. So I didn't go home for Christmas. And you know, my best Christmas present I could get, I got a contract. So I was pretty excited about that. I love the matchup. You know, Bruno Oliveira, he's going to bring a lot of challenges. He's going to test me in ways that I haven't been tested yet. And I'm excited to do that on the platform that I get to, you know, like I said, with everything else, like, I don't want to miss out on anything anymore. I don't want to waste time. So I'm going to go out there. I'm either going to come back with my shield or I'm going to go out on it, and it's going to be for everyone to see, you know. And I feel like, you know, I'm going to come back with my shield. I feel very confident in this matchup. I feel like I'm much faster. My boxing's a lot better. My pace, I don't think there's a lot of people in this game that can keep up with my pace and the way I push the pace. So, you know, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great fight. I'm hoping for a first round knockout. You know, that'd be amazing. If not, I'm going to drag it to deep waters and I'm just going to drown them.
I mean, Corey, the man pretty much laid it out there. You got any questions for the man?
I mean, I feel like I squeezed in like most of mine kind of throughout. What you
did, but you forgot one of the best ones. I know you.
I always forget them until
I know you got to be watching all these.
And then I'm like, man, why didn't you remind me of that
There's these things called show notes that I send them every week before we do the show. So, you know, I try to do it. But last but not least, you know, we got a pretty big fight as UFC's coming back to the game this Saturday. You know, you've got in the event, you've got Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, and then you've also got the immortal Matt Brown versus Carlos Condit. How do you see those fights playing out?
Oh, so I'm a huge Max Bless Holloway fan. You know, I love the guy. I love everything he stands for. This is a tough one, you know, because Calvin Kattar's on a roll and his boxing is noise. So it's going to be so interesting. I want Max to win, but obviously, you know, being a realist, you could see how, you know, Kattar could win. We'll see how Max comes back from losing, you know, both those title shots, which, you know, arguably could have went either way, you know.
The second one, especially.
Yeah, dude. That's
the first one I could maybe go, I could see you more, but the second one I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. So that one's, it's a toss up. I hope he comes out. You know, I don't want, you know, like it happens with everyone. You don't want to see your idols go out the way they do, you know. You want them to like bow out gracefully, but you know, being a competitor, it's hard to say when it's done. But as far as Matt Brown and Carlos Condit, man, that's an amazing fight. I wish we would have got a couple years ago, you know.
Right.
And I'm gonna go with the natural born killer. Like, you got to. Like, I'm a huge Matt Brown fan. I think he's tough. I think he's durable. He's a son of a bitch. But, you know, the natural born killer, he's long, lanky like me. Like, let's go for the skinny guy, you know?
So let me get this straight. So you've got the natural born killer, Carlos Condit, and you've got, who'd you pick on the other fight?
Holloway.
Okay, so Holloway and Matt Brown. I like it. Corey, who are you rolling with?
All right, so to
Short
kind of
because we're at the end.
To kind of coattail off what you were saying, I really kind of picture this Holloway matchup almost identical, but a 45 version of him versus Poirier. I feel like Cater doesn't quite have the same amount of power that Dustin has. So, and I think that was the huge difference, was the ability for Dustin to land the power shots and kind of stunt the momentum of Holloway. Every time he would try to get anything going, he would just get one or two power shots landed, a 1-2 hard. And it stopped it all, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if Cater is going to be able to do that. I completely agree with you on the clean boxing, but I think the size difference between the two guys is pretty drastic. I think the reason why Poirier was able to do that is because of the size. My biggest concern was also, like you were saying, how is he going to come back from the title fight? Is he, in all the media and stuff that I've seen kind of coming up to this, he keeps talking about how he should be fighting Volkanovski again. This should have been Volkanovski a third time. I won the second one. I'm the rightful champ.
So
I agree with him.
Might be overlooking him.
My exact concern. I completely agree with him. I would have loved to see the third go around. I think he won the second one. I think he is the uncrowned champ. But if you're not taking Cater serious, man, he is not the person you want to mess around with. Not at all.
You don't want to overlook him.
So that being said, I still think Holloway takes it. I do. I think the combos kind of end up being a little bit too much, especially if Cater's not able to get started like he's kind of shown in other fights. He kind of takes till about the midway of the second round to kind of get going. It's a real interesting fight, though. I love the matchup. I love the fact it's on ABC, so it's going to get a lot more eyes even than normal.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah.
It's an awesome matchup. It's an awesome matchup. But as for the two vets in the game, I think Matt Brown's going to take them against the cage and land them bows, man. I think he's going to pressure him. Yep, that Matt Brown over the top, just and I hate to see Condit go down like that, but that's how I see it going.
So you got Matt Brown and Holloway on this one?
Yeah. I think that Carlos looked really good in his last fight, but I think that was because Court McGee wasn't the same Court. I think that was more the issue there. So that being said, I go Matt Brown.
All right. So for me, man, I'm a little partial to Holloway, man. I got to kick it with him a little bit here in Detroit when they had the UFC here, and he couldn't have been cooler.
Does he live up to the expectations?
He was as cool as you could have thought he would be. He was super chill. He wasn't real cocky. He wasn't like a real asshole. Like, you know, like some of those guys, man, like you get it in any sport. I've had it happen in wrestling and I've had it happen in MMA. Some guys are super cool about it and some guys are like, oh, well, I don't want to give you no time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like it kind of goes. But when I met the guy, he was everything you could have wanted to see. For me, I completely agree with what you said, Corey. In the first fight, I had no problem with Volkanovski getting the win in it. The second fight, though, I really kind of feel like the only reason why Holloway didn't get that was because of the championship advantage, which by Volkanovski winning the first fight, you know, he earned that championship advantage. But I want to see him run it back the third fight. But if he can come in here and get a dub over somebody like Calvin Kattar, I mean, it's going to be kind of hard to argue.
Well, and another thing, not to interrupt you, but one thing I did forget to mention in that point was the fact that you kind of brought up, you know, you hate to see your idols kind of go down in a blaze of glory, essentially.
Yeah.
people forget how young Max Holloway still is, man. He's 29 years old. Calvin Kattar's the older guy in this. I mean, he might be the new shiny piece in the
Get
UFC,
on the block, but he ain't the younger of the two
but
fighters.
he's not the younger one.
Yeah.
I mean, Max has got some miles on him, but that Calvin Kattar's been around the block too. So I
hear that.
Max's took a little bit of time off, and I love the matchup. Sorry
I
to
hear that,
interrupt, Kyle.
but
Go on.
To get my picks in real quick, like I said, for me, I think the experience is going to be the difference in this one. I think Holloway has something to prove. I feel like he feels like he's been a little bit slighted, and I feel like a fighter who doesn't have a grudge but feels like he has something to prove is a dangerous motherfucker. So for me, in the main event, I'm going with Holloway. As far as the co-main event, like you said, Mr. Fremd, I'm a big fan of the natural born killer, Carlos Condit. I've been watching him since his WEC days. That being said, I am a big fan of Matt Brown too, so I'm really liking this fight. But if I gotta pick one, Matt will always have the heart of a warrior, the heart of a lion, all that good stuff. But I feel like Carlos Condit is going to be coming out with that dub and be getting him another body as the natural born killer. Before we let you get out of here, man, any last words for your opponent and anybody who's new to Josh Fremd and what they can expect come January 29th live on UFC Fight Pass?
Yeah, I got nothing to say to my opponent. I hope you don't have COVID. Please show up. Let's get it on. You guys go follow me on Instagram, on Twitter. I'm just gonna bring the fight. Like I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna try and perform the best of my abilities. I practice every day. I train every day. I've given up and sacrificed so much for this. So I hope you guys enjoy what I'm about to show you at the end of the month.
I think that pretty much puts a bow on it, Corey. And like we told you before, if you haven't done so already, make sure you smash that subscribe button as we're headed down to Dallas. Like I said, man, you don't know what the fuck we're going to be running into. As I hear, there's a murder hog monster going to be at the show on Thursday, as Lance Archer from AEW is going to be there at the show Thursday, as well as past guests of the show, El Rudo de los Chicos, Sam Adonis, and you've got Garrison Creed, who you just saw here last week. So, like I said, make sure you check it out. We're doing throwing axes and Top Golf. I can't golf for shit, but until next time and in the in-between time, be cool. Peace.